There are 7 billion people on our planet. Every one of us has a voice that is unique and an expression of us. And it's the only musical instrument that comes built in. I'm Antonio Pappano. And as a conductor, I've had the great good fortune to work with some of the best singers in the business. I'm on the stage of the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden, my musical home, and home to all the great operatic stars, past and present. In this series, I'll be looking at some of the finest singers there have been since recording and moving pictures began. What unique qualities put them on their pedestals? What new insights did they bring to the classic roles? And what made them stand the test of time? Soprano, mezzo-soprano, tenor, countertenor, baritone, bass. Which one of these vocal categories do you fit in? Oh yes, you do fit into one of these. Imagine them as colors, as the composers would, matching the color of the voice to the role. These voices express and reflect back to us all shades of our humanity. I'll be talking to some of the great singers of today, working with them, in fact, to find out some of the tricks of the trade. Sing a bit, let me feel it. How does the throat work? How does the breathing work? The body, the soul. The soprano is the highest female voice, her thrilling top notes amongst the most exciting sounds in opera and song, but also expressing every facet of femininity. I think the soprano voice is perhaps the most flexible voice of all. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Music that is sweetly lyrical and poetic to gutsy and dramatic. Loving, suffering, and usually dying, there's a soprano at the heart of practically every opera. From fearsome warriors to feisty servant girls to murderous divas and scheming wives. To sing one of the classic soprano roles, you'd better bring something new to the table, and something you.
Lady Macbeth is kind of harsh, it's very focused, it's very aggressive singing. When I'm preparing something, I'm listening 20 different versions of the role, and then I'm finding the one which is closer to me.
I think the personality is so much an important part of you as an artist. I mean, contrast is so important to avoid monotony.
Absolutely. That's why, you know, some of the singers are genius, and you're listening to them and you don't understand why I like so much this singer, why I listen this again and again, and why another one has a beautiful voice and I don't like it. I think because of that. Some of them can find these colors and make the whole palitra of the music, and the others are just staying plain.
Get the light around. Miss Callis. Miss Callis.
Sorry, I'm in a terrible hurry.
Miss Callis.
Hurry. I'm sorry. I have no thoughts except on catching the plane.
Our modern idea of the soprano was stamped by La Divina, Maria Callas, the most famous and possibly the most controversial soprano of the 20th century.
Miss Callis, have we dismayed you with the intensity of our journalistic welcome today?
Well, I would much rather you just let me come in and go out as I please without any attention.
Okay.
Callas's genius made her a one-woman cult, idolized by her legions of fans.
I consider myself privileged because I have been capable of, how can I say it, giving it to the public and being received by the public. Not everybody can do that.
It's rare that a singer's interpretation of a role transcends its underlying quality, finding more meaning, more nuance, more drama than the composer perhaps even imagined. Maria Callas raised the bar for all singers. Such was the intensity of Callas's powers as both singer and actress that her fame spread far beyond the opera house, the very symbol of soprano as diva.
She was intimidating in a way because of her clarity of what she wanted and what she represented. I remember one day I was in the elevator and she came in and the doors closed and she turned to me and said, "Well, it's Willard White. Hello, Willard. How are you?" And the elevator's going. And then the elevator stopped, and I'm going. And I never actually. "Goodbye, Willard." And she was out.
Callas could be difficult. Her tantrums were gleefully reported. But her high-handedness, she once said, was a form of self-protection for timid people. She was commanding on stage, a bundle of anxieties off it.
She was one of the most nervous performers I've ever come across. She needed support all the time. And I had it here, particularly with Gertie, her dresser, when Gertie used to say, "Look at what she's done to me. I got bruises all the way up my arm." And this was Maria clutching. Increasingly, Callas lived her life, not least her love life, in the public gaze. The lines between woman and performer became blurred. But whatever her private fortunes, her honesty, conviction, and seriousness shone through on stage.
You can't persuade the public of a preposterous thing. Give it the most credibility possible. And to persuade the public, I try to find truth in the music.
She was a great actress. And that voice, how do you describe that voice? Unconventional in every sense. Dark, light, alluring, disturbing. Nowhere did artist and woman collide more poignantly than in the role of the diva Tosca. Confronted with the choice of sleeping with the brutal chief of police, Scarpia, or seeing her lover die, she appeals to God. Many saw this as her personal testament. She creates pathos. She's totally into herself.
When you want to find how to act on stage, all you have to do is listen to the music. If you take the trouble to really listen with your soul and with your ears, you will find every gesture there.
She has her eyes shut most of the time, as you notice. There seems to be a growing intensity in this aria. Even though here she pulls back the voice, almost sounding like a young girl. It's a very intelligent use of the dynamics of loud, soft. But let's go back in time. In the church, there was a totally different tradition with regards to the soprano voice. But it wasn't the soprano we think of today. Its soaring, keening intensity has been exploited by composers since the early Middle Ages. The soprano voice would have been heard in this guise, but they're not females, they are young boys singing the soprano parts. A voice that is particularly angelic, pure, and free of extraneous vibrato. Thanks to St. Paul, women were banned from singing in church, and singing in public for money was seen as disreputable. But in late 16th century royal courts, bona fide professional female singers began to emerge.
Don't, 'cause I know.
Now, in a love song, a distinctively female sensibility could color the emotions. This was new. There is nothing quite like that.
Beautiful. It's an amazing song.
I think it's one of the great songs ever written. But you're using vibrato and non-vibrato for expressive purposes. Now, vibrato is the natural undulation of the voice, but what does it do to the expression? Hear the undulation? It's not unattractive, it's very natural, it's very beautiful. Warm, even, I would say. Now show me non-vibrato and how it colors the text. Yeah, see, the voice is straight. Now, I've spoken to so many singers, and they keep bringing up the word color. And what does coloring mean?
Coloring is the way we choose to say the word, to sing the word, the sound, whether I sing in darkness, you can really go more, in darkness, and they just have a different effect.
Exactly. Once a female soprano singing in public became socially acceptable, femininity in all its guises seduced male composers. By the time of Handel, the rise of the soprano gave composers the chance to write bravura arias to convey what they thought, at least, were definitive feminine traits, such as vanity in this instance with the mythological Semele. You have fantastic flexibility in your voice. You have amazing coloratura. Coloratura means when the notes are quickly following each other, so florid writing for the voice. Quick notes, if you like, the simplest.
It's just having this... And it's just...
Now go up to the high note. The female soprano expanded music's emotional range. By the end of the 18th century, the term prima donna had entered the English language, soon to mean more than just a soprano's role. In 1951, a gutsy Australian set sail from Sydney Harbour for Tilbury Docks. After a 6-week voyage, she arrives in London with only one thing in her sight: the Royal Opera House, Covent Garden.
I knew that I would probably end up doing secretarial work, and I didn't start to really sing professionally until I was about 19. But that was my one ambition. I had nothing further. That was it. I just wanted to sing in Covent Garden.
The feeling wasn't mutual. Joan Sutherland failed 2 auditions.
I had no background of being on the stage at all. and I couldn't relax. My inability to feel free to move easily tended to inhibit my singing. It sort of tied me in knots. I felt, shall we say, rather large and very much out of place on the stage, because there were a few relatives who thought it was rather shocking, if you can believe that.
Over 6 foot tall, uncomfortable in her own skin as an actress, the odds were against Sutherland. But she and pianist and conductor Richard Bonning, whom she later married, persevered. This time they put her on the main stage, and she decides to sing repertoire where she has an opportunity to use uncommon ornamentation. And decoration. And flash, if you like.
3 auditions must have meant something, I don't know what. But I found myself with a contract, and I was delighted.
Sutherland's breakthrough came because Richard Bonning had encouraged her to switch from the music of Verdi to an earlier, lighter-voiced repertoire.
I do believe that all singers should learn the classics. And when I say the classics, I mean the great vocal classics, Rossini, Bellini.
So the bel canto
Mozart,
school.
the bel canto. If you can sing bel canto properly, which very few people can, you can sing anything.
The vocal music of early 19th century composers such as Rossini, Bellini and Donizetti, nowadays referred to as bel canto, is characterized by purity of tone and agility and replete with mad scenes. Here, for example, the mad scene from Lucia di Lammermoor. Lucia, forced into a political marriage, murders her husband on their wedding night. The demands of the singer in this repertoire are enormous. Now, in this section, the expectations were that the singer would use their art, their imagination, to ornament this simple melody. So what was becomes, and I'm not going to give it all away because I want you to hear her do it, but did you hear that little scale? Another time she'll do this. With a little staccato, so the whole panoply of vocal techniques. Born just 3 years after Callas, down to earth rather than highly strung, different in vocal texture, Joan Sutherland was christened La Stupenda.
Your celebrated nickname, La Stupenda. Surely that must have knocked you in ways, mustn't it?
Well, it was very flattering, and still is, actually. I was never quite sure which way they meant it, you know, whether it was either the sound or the size of me.
sing in a big opera house without a microphone takes the kind of training and dedication that an Olympic athlete puts in. Fail to train and nurture your voice, and you will fail as an opera singer.
It's very early in the morning, so the sound still needs to be woken up.
The whole upper half of our body is involved in singing. The power source is the lungs, so you have to have strong chest and stomach muscles to control the breath you push out. What makes the sound worth listening to is then down to the singer's throat. We have Anna Seminska in an MRI scanner, and she is going to be singing while being scanned. I can't tell you how curious I am. I've been looking forward to this. It's just something really, really crazy. But here we go. That's great, Anna, but isn't it higher than that?
Much higher.
Whether on stage or in an MRI scanner, the Queen of the Night's famous aria needs a vocal acrobat. The muscles in the larynx involved in producing sound are the smallest in the whole body. The vocal cords themselves are only around 15 millimeters in length.
We've taken a section just through the middle, so we've included the parts of the oral cavity, so the mouth, the back of the throat, and the laryngeal structures, the voice box.
As the breath travels up through the larynx, it passes through the tiny vocal cords, which then vibrate to produce the sound. The higher the note, the more the vibration, up to around 1,000 times a second. You need to create as much space as possible in the mouth and the back of the throat so that sound is amplified. The soft palate, tongue, and lips shape the notes.
So this is a short segment. The lips are parting, the oral cavity is nice and wide, and the tongue is pushed to the back of the throat to control all of that movement of air. And the number of muscles that are involved in all of that is just phenomenal. And in the larynx alone, you've got about 20 muscles that are just controlling the intrinsic movement of the vocal cords.
I'm just amazed how it looks. When I sing, I'm so concentrated on the thing I'm doing. I had no idea I move so many muscles I use, and wow, that's amazing, really.
Now let's move on to a vocal heavyweight. A soprano needs stamina to tackle the music of Richard Wagner. She competes with a huge orchestra, often singing for long stretches. She needs a big resonant voice and a personality to match. Born in 1918, the dramatic soprano Birgit Nilsson grew up on a farm in rural Sweden. She was required to milk the 10 cows even before her audition at the Swedish Royal Academy of Music. Well, she got in.
My parents, they thought I should, be a little bit practical girl. I should take over the farm. I should marry a farmer. I sang before I could walk. They told me I walked very late. I was rather heavy. My father always had me to sing in parties, and we had a lot of people coming to our house, and sometimes I was singing 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and I said, you are killing the girl because, she will ruin her vocal cords. But finally, I think it made it, instead of ruining them, it made them strong.
Nielsen's supercharged vocal cords made her perfect for the commanding dramatic roles. The voice, fire and ice, like a knife, cutting through the texture of the orchestra. Listen to her approach to the high notes now. Absolutely direct and fearless. You see how clean and what a gleam on that sound. Now, common wisdom would say that you should join the lower note to the higher note. But no, she stops in between quel, cri, and it really does pin you to the back of your seat. Believe me, people have told me who have heard her live and saying, my goodness, this was an event. Birgit Nilsson played larger-than-life characters on stage. Off it, she was pretty formidable too, an intimidating force if she felt she was battling an immovable object.
Do you regard yourself as temperamental?
I know I have a very strong temperament. And when I get people which, you know, don't care so much, then I can be very difficult.
Well, I expected that you install a spotlight for me tomorrow. Because this is no good. It's very important.
I don't like people, conductors, singers, stage directors, who always in their back head try to bring through their egos, you know. An artist who cannot forget themselves in the moment when they are creating art, they are no artist.
One must always consider what the Wagnerian singer is up against when it comes to the size of the orchestra. You have to find the maximum resonance without shouting, because by shouting you will just become hoarse, and the orchestra will win every time. In Götterdämmerung, a soprano has to contend with a 100-piece orchestra. Nielsen rises defiantly to the challenge. Now, those gleaming high notes we expect from her. But if you listen to the middle of the voice, it's as if the middle voice is as projected as the high notes are.
They say in a studio, when you sing a high note, go 3 steps back. And when you sing a low note, take 1 step to the microphone. You have to have a certain stamina for Wagner, but I think I was born with that. I felt very strong when I was singing, and when I started to take lessons, I felt really like some sort of a boxer or a wrestler or something like that. So it must have been in my nature.
With such command, force, and vocal heft, Birgit Nilsson defines exactly what is the dramatic soprano. But at the other end of the spectrum is the light lyric soprano. Now, these voices played characters who were lovely, often down to earth, witty, and certainly loquacious, as in the operas of our beloved Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The Bavarian soprano Diana Damrau has a voice ideally suited to Mozart's sparkling, knowing heroines.
When we go back to Mozart, time-wise, the orchestra was much smaller, the orchestration was smaller, that means members of the orchestra were less. So the voice has to adapt to all this. You are far more exposed. You can't relax yourself on top of a beautiful and full orchestra sound where you can hide a lot of things.
In singing Mozart, you're almost always accompanied by a solo wind instrument. It's a wonderful device, but requires the singer, therefore, to have an instrumental quality of their own, a purity of tone. The intonation, the pitch must be just so.
You always think, yeah, the most power we need is for a high note. No. I think you need as much power for a pianissimo note, floating somewhere. Mozart singing, you need all the colors, all the technique, all the flexibility, but you have to have the control. And then Mozart music can take you anywhere.
Our visitor tonight is a famous American singer, the brilliant soprano Leontine Price.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
Leontine Price faced more than just a musical challenge to get to the top. She was born in 1927 in Mississippi, a racially segregated state.
There were millions of things that were negative, but it didn't get in the way. And I had nothing else on my mind except to be the best.
And she made it, her talent nurtured and encouraged by her family and the local Methodist church choir.
Mother and and Daddy told my brother and myself, achievement has nothing except what it's supposed to be. It has no color, it has no religion, it has you and your God-given talent.
In the scented bud of the morning, oh, when the windy grass went rippling far, I saw my dear one walking slow in the field where the daisies are. We did not laugh and we did not speak as we wandered happily to and fro. I kissed my dear on either cheek in the bud of the morning, oh.
Her voice, well, she captured and kept your attention through the sheer seamlessness of her legato, a creamy, silken texture that, though able to express vulnerability, it was the sheer majesty and regal nature of her performances that impressed you the most. Wow, Leontine Price made a specialty of singing the tragic heroines of Verdi. She made her debut at the Metropolitan Opera in 1961 as Leonora. It was obvious to everyone present that a star was born. She received a 40-minute standing ovation.
I can't even put that into words. I still see all of us marching from the wings of this great opera house. I felt that I had conquered the world that night, and I will never, ever, ever forget it. I sang in London. I sang in Berlin. I sang in La Scala. The word was out, here's a voice that may not be too bad.
Leontine Price's signature role was Verdi's Aida. Now, for a big voice, it's perhaps the most exposed role there is. It requires simply perfect singing. It's an unusual soprano lead, an enslaved African princess.
Aida may be my operatic legacy because my skin was my costume. It was the way I felt as a human being, the way I was as a person, merged with me as a singer.
This aria features one of the most difficult high Cs to achieve. Verdi had a way of approaching high notes stepwise, in other words, note by note by note, instead of a big jump to the note. This, for a singer, is like seeing impending doom instead of launching to the goal.
Leontine Price, for me, I literally sat on the subway when I was a Juilliard student and said, I'm channeling her high C. Please, God, let me have that high C.
My my big buddy, Giuseppe Verdi, fixed it so in the area that I, shall we say, delivered, it was as if being anointed by him. That's the kind of fun I had.
Modern composers utilize a very different soundscape to that of Verdi, to say the least. But the underlying vocal techniques are the same. This is the American soprano Barbara Hannigan singing and conducting a piece by Hungarian composer György Ligeti from 1992. Barbara, you've sung all kinds of music, but it's in the contemporary repertoire where you've almost lived. You've done 80 new pieces.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? It's my safe space, you know? I was intimidated by convention and tradition. I found it scary. But somehow the contemporary music for me was freeing.
A lot of the music that I've heard you sing had a lot of staccato or detached notes.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't come from here. The staccato does not come from here. The mouth is just open. It doesn't open and close and open and close.
Right.
But what I think of is, you know, when you had the little electricity set when you were a kid and you connected the thing that made the light bulb go on and the light bulb went wah, wah, wah. So there's like, I feel like I'm singing a continuous line. Here's the line, and the notes just go wah, 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 wah. They're like little stars.
Here's Joan Sutherland using the exact same technique. I think composers in today's world are looking for new ways to go beyond the traditional. So one of the things that is thrown at you in contemporary repertoire is this extreme vocality, going from very low to very high. Well, let's go to something that was written for you.
Right. Nothing ever eat, nothing drink.
The soprano needs to use the resonances created by different parts of her body to go from high to low, from the head voice to the chest voice.
Out of this body.
Wow. Now, what does chest voice mean to you?
It's voce di petto. It's like Ethel Merman. You know, that Broadway kind of, there's no business like show business. You know, that's chest voice.
Okay.
And as you make the transition into the higher register, you can't carry it up. But what we opera people do is we try to make the transition very beautiful. Otherwise, we'd be yodeling. Yodelay, yodelay, yodelay.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
But anyway, the transition is something that we try to make very smooth, so we can mix the two. It's like making a salad dressing, you know. You don't want the oil and vinegar to be separate. You want to emulsify. And that's what we do. We make really good salad dressing.
This is Mimi, the TB-stricken seamstress in Puccini's La Bohème. The opera is so popular that the role can often become cloying unless you're a great artist like this one. Renata Tebaldi had what I would call a glorious voice, but that's easy to say. It's this constant stream of pure tone that she was able to conjure up. Tebaldi shot to fame in the 40s. Only 1 year older, she became the main rival of Maria Callas, as far as the press were concerned at least. But their voices and choice of roles were quite different. Puccini requires this sweetness in the tone, this dolcezza, and this Tebaldi does like no one else. Her phrasing, too, is very personal. Listen to how she delivers this with such a natural and disarming quality. It's a popular perception that opera is stuck in the past, that opera houses are museums, blah, blah, blah. Rubbish. I think opera is extraordinary because it has the ability to reinvent itself, and it does move with the times. Contemporary operas are doing what operas have always done, laying bare our prejudices, assumptions, and hypocrisies.
I wanna blow you all, blow you all, a kiss.
Anna Nicole is an operatic riff on the outwardly tacky life of former Playboy model Anna Nicole Smith. Infamous for her curves, her marriage to an octogenarian multimillionaire, and her early death. Dutch soprano Eva Maria Westbrook sings the title role. Nowadays, the stage director demands far more of sopranos than just their voices.
Facts, 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 blah-de-da-de, blah-de-blah. Facts, 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 facts. Well, here's where it all began. I was young, I was single, flit-chested, indigent.
In past years, opera was mainly a stand and sing affair. It's changed considerably, and I think the demands made on you as Anna Nicole, it's the costume,
I had
the
sleepless
the
nights
boobs,
over this.
the
I've never had more friends in my life, to be honest. The blonde hair and the boobs. I really love doing this diversity of things, and I love trying to get to the truth of everything, the truth of the text and the expression and the music, whatever, just to really work on that.
You can fight, you can beg, you can plead, you can cry, but you need a little luck, girls, you need a little luck.
How do you write an opera, a modern subject, and use a singer who sings Wagner and who sings Puccini?
Yeah, I know it sounds a strange thing to say, but it really helped that she wasn't English. I've got a slight problem with posh English sung. But it's also, it was to do with the quality of the voice, because she has this warmth about her. It comes through in her singing, but also not just in the acting, but in her as a person. I think she has this magnetism.
These are real dramatic soprano notes sung with an operatic technique. Most of the music is in a pop idiom. You have to drawl in American, Texas twang. Singing those vowels must have been a nightmare because you were constantly trying to find the right place, where to put the voice.
I personally always think that you have to have sort of a roundness to your mouth.
I can drink you under the ocean, undressed to get messed up. And when I'm done, I will just kiss you. You gotta know your limits.
Anna Nicole is a modern morality tale. She rises from obscurity to celebrity, falls victim to addiction and depression, and loses both her husband and her son.
She was so charismatic, sensationally beautiful. And then to see her from that turn into this sort of what she became in the end, it's just one of the saddest things. This opera now is so important because this is how we are with each other now, you know, how we are with famous people, that we want to see their cellulite and their divorces and their, you know, we all want to see them, you know.
Grime.
Yeah, and it's horrible.
Sopranos have thrilled us for 5 centuries. They vocally defined woman in all her varieties, making a specialty of the mad scene and the inevitable death. Vocal heft, lightness of touch, grace, power. The star sopranos have given us their supreme voices, and their own personalities have shared their art. Next time, we take to the high seas the world of the tenor. From romantic lead to tragic hero and all the shades in between. The glamour boys of opera.
And there's a brand new episode of Pappano's Classical Voices here on BBC4 at 9 on Sunday. Next tonight, though, pioneering rhythms and rich vocal harmonies as the blues beat picked up. We're heading back to the birth of rock and roll America for the start of a brand new series in just a moment.